This video walks you through enrolling and prescribing with ScriptSure. Start by going to Settings. Click on Prescriptions, then click on ScriptSure Enrollment. Scroll down and find your username. Click Send Assistant Invite. The user will receive an email to complete their registration. On the ScriptSure enrollment page, enter an email address and create a password. Then click Complete Sign-up. ScriptSure enrollment is now complete. From here, go back into the Prosper dashboard. Go to Settings, then E-Prescriptions, and click on ScriptSure Enrollment. Here you'll see the user is now registered. Next, select the provider the user will be prescribing for. Click the Check by Provider Name, then click Request Access so the provider can grant access. At this point, the provider will need to log into ScriptSure to grant the user's permission request. This is what the provider will see on their ScriptSure page after the user requests access to prescribe. This alert lets them know that someone has requested access. The provider needs to select Yes. On the next screen, the provider will need to set the user permissions. The options are: users can send non-controlled prescriptions without provider approval, meaning they can send directly to the pharmacy. Controlled prescriptions always require provider approval. Users can approve refill requests, and users can also deny refill requests. Once the selections are made, the provider will click Grant. And then there is one final confirmation page where the provider will click Yes to confirm access. Now that the user has been granted access, let's walk through how to prescribe. Go back to Prosper and go to Prescriptions, then New Prescription, and search for the patient name. From here, you can use a favorite medication if there are any saved, or prescribe a new one. To use a favorite, select Favorite, then click Load beside the favorited medication. Next, review the directions, the quantity, unit type, include the number of refills. If that looks correct, click Next Pharmacy. On this page, the patient's favorite pharmacy will be pulled by default. If a change is needed, click the X to choose a different pharmacy. Once the pharmacy is confirmed, click Next Review. On this page, a review screen will open so you can double-check that everything looks correct. Then click the green button at the bottom that says Review one prescription in ScriptSure. At this point, the option to send to pharmacy or queue to provider will appear. These buttons are based on the permissions granted by the provider. If the only option is queue to provider, and that button is clicked, the prescription will be submitted and appear in the provider's queue. To prescribe a medication that was not a favorite, type in the medication name and choose the strength. Then enter the directions as those are required, and select the quantity, the unit type, and whether refills are allowed. You can select the option to prevent generic substitutions or to prohibit refill requests. The next section is for ICD-10 codes and any notes for the pharmacy. Once that is complete, click Next Pharmacy. This page will pull up the patient's favorite pharmacy. If a change is needed, click the X. If everything looks good, click Next Review. On the next page, review the directions, quantity, refills, substitution settings, renewal settings, pharmacy, and patient name. If that is correct, click Create Prescription. Then the ScriptSure homepage will open for a final review. If everything looks correct and you have permission to send to the pharmacy, click Send to Pharmacy. From here, the final check screen will open. Do one last review to make sure all information is correct. If so, click Approve and Send. At this point, the patient's prescription will be sent to the pharmacy. To confirm, go into the patient's profile, go to Medical Info, and then Prescriptions. The prescription will show as sent to the pharmacy as well as other prescription history.